Alright, hello and welcome to another Train Sim World 2 video, and this time we're going to be driving from Glasgow Central to Glasgow Central. We're going to be going along the Cathcart circle today, with a different locomotive than is actually included in the Glasgow Cathcart Circle pack. We're going to be using the Class 465, all because this is a very good commuter train and it's honestly one of my favourites to drive. But also in today's video we are going to be following up with a few roadmap things, because I did watch the whole stream at last and I have some interesting news regarding some of the features that will be included with the roadmap update. And this is going to be a core thing. It's going to come along at exactly the same time as Rush Hour. So Rush Hour is sort of its own DLC, but then it's also bringing things along with it in the core update, bringing everything up to 426 on the Unreal Engine. So yeah, interesting stuff to talk about. But last time, if you remember, we did have some confirmation about the West Cornwall local line, aka Penzance to Truro and St Ives, and that was that we're going to get the class 150 definitely in that pack. And there were just general roadmap updates. 313 hasn't moved from its current place in the roadmap, which means it's not going to be arriving that soon, although to be fair it's probably going to be relatively soon given everything. And Rush Hour is scheduled to come out at pretty much the end of August at the latest is when we can expect it. So we'll be keeping in touch with that, because Dovetail will be doing special dedicated Rush Hour streams, which are basically roadmaps for Rush Hour specifically. I don't think it'll replace the regular roadmap streams. I think we're still going to be getting some updates on that. But for the most part, the focus is now switching over to Rush Hour and all the things that come along with that. So, what else is Rush Hour bringing with it? Well, interestingly enough, there is one thing that a lot of people are going to be thankful for, and that is updates to the controls. So, we know that Train Sim World 2 introduced the immersion controls, and it's the control scheme that I use all the time. I don't use classic controls, I prefer the immersion controls, because for the simple reason, I just think they're easier to learn, easier to get to grips with, and I'm used to them now. I didn't really enjoy the multiple camera aspect, or rather I didn't enjoy the process of having to go into menus to get to the different camera angles. However, interestingly enough, that will still be possible thanks to this immersion control update that they're going to be bringing along. So you'll know that if you try and use the immersion controls now, let's just say for example I'm using a PS4 controller, so the R3 button is used to sort of go to the outside camera, and you can move it around. I mean, it's not just fixed in one place. You can switch between the cab view, which is right now, and also the outside camera, like I do a lot in the videos. And it's just one tap and you're there. The only thing is that there are many other camera angles that people still wanted to see, and it was just the process of the menus popping up in the classic control scheme, which is still available by the way if you want to use it. I think the new stuff is not compatible with it, so I think it's the old stuff that's the classic controls, although could be wrong on that. I haven't really tested it, but you'll be able to see for yourself in game. Just go to the pause menu, switch over the control scheme. You can do that midway through if you really want to. And yeah, so with that being the case, there are no alternate camera views really with the immersion control scheme, except there is going to be, because there's a new feature coming to the control layout, and it's basically like a shift key on a keyboard. So if you use a keyboard, you'll know that if you hold down the shift button you can actually access other features on the keys. For example, you could press the 1 key on your keyboard, and obviously that would count as the number 1. But if you held down shift and press 1, that would be the exclamation mark. No, it would be a line. I think it would be an exclamation mark. It looks like it. Yeah, I'm just leaning over at the moment, sorry about that. And that's the chair squeaking. If you can hear that, sound like a fart. Let's try something else. If you press the 4 key, you obviously get the number 4, but if you press shift and press the 4 key, you'll get the $sign, at least on the keyboard that I have, and I think that's the UK standard keyboard. Yours may vary based on where you are and what version of the keyboard you've got. But yeah, you know how a shift key works, and that is going to be a thing that's going to be added to the control layout. Now I'm going to specify the word added because realistically speaking, nothing about the control scheme has changed other than the fact that they added a shift key, which will let you access other features. For example, Matt said that it would be the square button on the PS4 controller. So if you hold down square and then press another button, it would correspond to operation. So there's operation category, and then there's also a camera category. And operation is just operating the train, like PZB, PZB on the German trains, stuff like that. But then there's also other features that are going to be interlinked with that as well. And also, the camera thing, you'll be able to switch between the different cameras by using a button, by holding on the square button. So basically what you're getting is you're getting multiple camera views out of the same layout, as opposed to just changing the layout completely. Because one of the major things about this overhaul is that they didn't want to change what we already knew and what we already liked, and the emerging control scheme, for as many features as it doesn't have, it is well liked amongst the community. There's only a few people who really don't like it, and it's an improvement. I'm perfectly happy with that. Very excited actually, because that means I can access the different camera angles more easily in my videos, and it'll add a bit more variety to the actual gameplay. Interestingly, if we got Glasgow Central on the PIS system on the train, I don't know why that is, because this is a southeastern high-speed train, and I don't think you can get much further away from Kent than Glasgow. But anyway, so yeah, that's exciting. What is also exciting is if you'll know that with the horn on the controller, it's going to be the L3 button. However, now with that shift system in place, you'll be able to hold down the horn button and then use another key or button on the controller to use high and low tones. So finally we can use high and low tones without going into the cab and manually moving the horn stick, which will be very nice. That's something that PC people get to do all the time. If you do play with a keyboard, obviously you just have had that already. But if you're playing with a controller, you won't have gotten that until now. So that's brought it up to speed. More features being added to an existing control layout. Nothing really major. Nothing is really changing about it. So PS4 is whirring away there. So yeah, hopefully people are happy with that, because I know I am. I think it's a good idea. And that was pretty much the only major piece of information that I want to share with you today, because all the rest of the stuff, there was a general comment that was made by the team, and that was they're not forgetting about the previous generation of console users, so PS4 and Xbox One excuse me, PS4 and Xbox One users. And that is good news, because there are more people on PS4 and Xbox One than there are on the newer consoles. because getting one of those new consoles is just a pain in the backside, as it were. So yeah, they understand that there is a bigger market there, and that just abandoning that market is going to be the worst thing they could do. Now, this does raise some questions from me. I do want to ask this on the forums, but I feel like it's not going to be answered the way I want it to be. I do want to know whether the next game in the series, so if they're planning on making a Train Sim World 3, I imagine so. Again, haven't heard anything about it, but I just, if it's going to happen, then will it be exclusive to PS5 and Xbox Series, is it Series X, the new one? The new Xbox? Is it going to be exclusive to that generation? Well, if it is going to be exclusive to that generation, that does mean quite a number of people might be left out in the cold. I mean, by that time, will we have all upgraded to the new generation of consoles? I don't know. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I feel like the PS5 is just a PS4 with a different coat of paint, if I'm completely honest. Yes, it's more powerful, but at the end of the day, I don't feel like making the switch. I don't feel like switching out my PS4 for a PS5. And the reason being is because I got a PS4 fairly late in its life, so if I had it on day one of release, I wouldn't feel this way. I would be perfectly fine with replacing it. It's just that it's incredibly expensive to get a PS4, and getting a PS5, it's incredibly expensive to get the PS5. And honestly, all I'm really going to be doing is getting all the PS4 games that are compatible with it, and just moving them over. But does that mean that I need a PS5 copy of Train Sim World too, or does it just, does it just update? I genuinely do not know. Am I able to bring my content that I've already bought onto the PS5? My gut says yes, because you were able to get stuff from the first game and move it over to the second via the Preserve collection, so, is that still going to be possible? My gut says yes, but my skeptical head says no, because that just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's an entire different platform, even though it's the same, even though it's got PlayStation written on it, even though it's made by Sony, it still is a different platform. So whether that will be possible or not, I do not know, and I don't fancy buying all this DLC again. So I was considering just getting a PC, because then I don't really have to worry so much about replacing my console. All I have to do is just get on the PS4 every time I want to play the content that I bought with that, and then on the PC I can enjoy the new stuff. And that's still in the works, but still, I don't feel like getting a PS5 if it's going to be exclusive, because that's just annoying. It really is. Same goes for Xbox players, I don't know if the same thing is, I don't know if you can port stuff over at all, so maybe they've answered this somewhere. If they did, I missed it, so yeah, we'll just have to, maybe I'll ask and post a question and see what happens, and then get back to you hopefully in the next video. Now I am glad that they are at least continuing stuff for Train Sim World 2 on the previous generation of consoles. However, that doesn't mean that the content is going to remain the same across both generations. On PC, this isn't really a problem. All PCs ideally would be able to handle this game just fine. But they do want to create unique versions of the DLCs for PS5 and Xbox Series X owners. Reason being is because there's just more stuff there to make use of, and if it's just not being used, then they're effectively wasting wasting that hardware, really. to put it bluntly. If they've got it on the throttle, then why not use it? You know, if they've got it in the actual system, why not make use of it? And that means that people who own the next generation of consoles will be able to get more out of these DLCs than someone who is on the previous generation. Now, when exactly they're planning to do that, I'm guessing is after the update to Unreal Engine 426. And the reason why I'm saying that is because Unreal Engine 426 does allow them to make bespoke builds. So they are able to make different builds for, you know, the PC, for PS4, for Xbox One, for PS5 and Xbox Series X. So they are able to make unique builds that make the best use of what is there using Unreal Engine. So basically the next generation of console players, they will be able to have their own unique versions that that use the hardware that's already there to the best of its ability, which means they're constantly pushing the limits on what they can do. So how will that affect DLCs? Honestly, it shouldn't affect it too much, because I would definitely not agree with them if they went a route that meant that the route was shorter on one console compared to another. I wouldn't agree with it if they didn't give console players the same locomotives drive. I wouldn't agree with that at all. I would be perfectly fine if the next generation got more services. I'd be fine with that. If it could fit more services on at once, I would be fine with that. If they got a better livery editor, I would be mostly fine with that. So yeah, but what I'm saying is I don't want there to be a huge gap between one generation and the next. I do think it should still be fairly even as far as the meaty content that we get, the meat and potatoes. I didn't cough. I didn't cough there. It's not like a euphemism or anything. It's just I'm coughing. So yeah. Hopefully, we'll find out more stuff to do with that. Now, what's next on the list? Well, I believe that's everything from the roadmap pretty much covered. And, last time I did say that the 150 had been confirmed. It does raise a lot of questions. It's not answering all of the questions that people might have about the route. Still, nothing much is known about it. 1991 to 2010 is the time period of the route. So, I'm guessing, just off the top of my head, just looking at all the other DLCs that we've had, it's probably going to be in the late 1990s or the early 2000s. Because I feel like we've got a lot in the sort of late, not late 2000s. We've got a lot of stuff in the 2010s, and now in the 2020s, sort of, not really. To be honest, we haven't. We've got a lot of stuff in the 2010s. We've got two 1980s routes. We've got a 1970s pack, and we've also got locomotives from all eras. But I noticed that the sort of early 2000s and late 1990s are kind of just not there. So that would be my guess as to the sort of rough era that we're talking, but that's just a guess, right? The only confirmed thing is that it's going to take place between 1991 and 2010, and the route goes from Penzance to Truro, and then also on the branch line to St Ives. Which, when I looked at it on Google Maps, there's a kind of like a feature on there where you can plan a journey and say, I want to go from, I don't know, Cornwall to, I don't know, Bermondsey, just like a random place off the top of my head. and then it will show you the distance in a car, show you distance walking, also using the train. Now, the train bit I was looking at, and it turns out that there's about 30 miles in between Penzance and Truro, so it's quite a ways, quite a decent distance. So that makes me more inclined to think that we're going to be getting a HST, because we're going to, well, it's a longer journey, isn't it? 30 miles, which I think is pretty much the same, similar sort of length on Great Western Express, from Reading to Paddington, or, the other way around. With that being the case, I do think that that means there is a market, as it were, for a HST to be included in that DLC. Now that doesn't mean it's definitely coming, it just means it would make sense. And it made sense anyway, even if the route was much shorter, it makes sense. Now, I'm no expert on any particular route in any part of the world, so I do not know what other alternatives there would be. Class 150 is confirmed, but Class 43 HST would be the only other one that I know people have been theorising about. Yeah. So with that being the case, I can't give you any alternatives. But as soon as they know what's going to be included in the pack, they will let us know. I don't know how long it's going to be before we see this actual pack being developed, or just being featured more on the roadmap. But yeah, I am looking forward to seeing exactly what it's like. And yes, I know I have a lot of UK routes, and that's not personal bias. I'm not biased towards the UK because I live there. It's just because I own a lot of UK trains, and using an American train on a UK route, well, the train is going to be on the left hand side of the rails. So in an American train, you'd be sitting on the right. Here I'm on the left and I'm driving on the left. Well, whereas in the US, sitting on the right and driving on the right. So it would feel a bit weird. It's not impossible to drive like that. And I mean, it probably doesn't bother a lot of people. It doesn't even bother me, but at the same time, I've got a lot of UK trains. I might as well use them on UK routes. And again, it's because they just feel more familiar to me. Well, not again, but that is why. I just prefer them, because that means I can research them a lot more. Plus, they tend to be passenger focused, and I do like passenger routes. German routes, to me, they kind of all look the same. I'm going to be brutally honest there, they kind of all look the same. I feel like I couldn't tell the difference between one and the other. I'm sorry, but Germany is just, in my head, when I think about Germany in Train Sim World, it's just grey and dark green trees, just everywhere. Like grey skies, muddy brown landscape, dark green trees, just all the way. That is what I think Germany looks like. Now, Germany is a beautiful country. It does have that very good architecture. But when I played Main Spessartbahn, when I did, what was the other one? The one that allows you to go... Let me see if I can remember that one. Schnellfasttrekker Köln to Aachen. So Cologne to Aachen. A long route, but man, there's just a load of countryside in the middle. There's just, I want to go further into Cologne than that. I want to see more buildings, and there are some routes in the game that are indeed like that, but they're shorter. So, I just don't find the German routes that interesting. Also, I'm unfamiliar with the signalling system, so even if I decided to, turn off the signal help, I wouldn't really be able to read the signs, because it's not as if they're in German, they're in a sort of non-language specific design. The thing is that I don't understand the signalling system in Germany. The signalling system in the USA, I believe, is pretty much the same thing as what's in the UK, except there's no AWS systems, and some of the signals might look different, but that's about it, you know. Yeah, not really familiar. And to be fair, all the trains that come with the German routes, most of them are kind of just the same thing over and over again. Like the Talent 2, the is a BR142, I believe, as well. That one is pretty much the same thing as the 146 freight thing. And you know, that's going to be included in other routes as well. So yeah, German routes don't really interest me, and I think that's fine. I think that's perfectly acceptable. You know, everyone's different, and I bet there are people in Germany who might not even like the German routes themselves. You know, so it's not really bias. It's more to do with what you personally like and don't like. I know that's kind of like a definition of bias, but I mean, the country that we come from doesn't influence the bias. It's just a personal thing. If you removed the fact that it was in Germany or in the UK, I'd still like the UK routes. If you just removed the names entirely, I'd still like them. Anyway, that's all for today's video. I do hope you enjoy watching the Class 465 go from Glasgow all the way back to Glasgow, which sounds a bit silly, but that's just how it is on the Cathcart Circle. Have a great day. Please do watch another video if you really want to. I'll see you all later.